Is North Korea ramping up its own domestic industries to produce munitions for the Russian war machine? But is the North Korean casualty rate climbing ever higher in Kursk? I'm Paul, U.S. Army combat veteran. Let's talk about it. Okay. There's a really interesting story from the Wall Street Journal that actually reports that North Korea appears to be preparing to not just supply arms to Russia, but actually manufacture new arms and munitions for the Russian military. Now, this is really interesting for a host of reasons, because we know that North Korea has already sent what they estimate to be about 20,000 shipping containers worth of munitions to Russia to fuel their war machine, most of which supposedly are artillery shells, right? North Korea has an army that is basically dependent on massed artillery, since they can't really seem to technologically beat the South Koreans. Their strategy was to simply produce more artillery shells and positions than the South Koreans could possibly intercept, and essentially point them all at Seoul. So the North Koreans, therefore, have this huge stockpile of Soviet-era 155 shells, perfect for them to effectively sell to Russia or gift to Russia in exchange for Russian technology. In all likelihood, it seems, at least in my assessment, to have been given to Russia for some level of assistance, military assistance, and possibly economic assistance. And so on top of that, North Korea is ramping it up, actually producing domestic munitions, up to 200 munition factories in North Korea running at full steam, making weapons, providing Russia fuel and equipment. Russia is providing some of the fuel and equipment to assist Pyongyang's arms production efforts, right? And the Wall Street Journal found satellite images that showed the factory grounds are actually being expanded, right? Now, they think North Korea may have received as much as $5.5 billion, according to one analyst. But what I think is more likely is actually that this is part of a couple of different things, right? Again, a mutually beneficial exchange by these two sides. But before we get into why I think each side stands to benefit from this bizarre exchange, I wanted to mention two things. The first is that Christmas is here, and if you wanted to help out the Ukrainian military, a lot of these guys are spending Christmas in trenches, in positions at the front lines, you can help out the guys who helped me out in my visit to Ukraine, including folks like the Liut Brigade, the 53rd, the Rubaza Brigade, Presidential. All of these are actually the brigades that helped me, that we met up with when I went to Ukraine last month. And the videos are getting edited now, so they're going to start dropping over the course of the new year. But those guys need help now, right? It's the winter. Russia's still ramping up its attacks, and Ukraine Aid Ops is on it, right? Purchasing drones. They're actually able to purchase now some fiber optic drones, but we're also getting them jammers, drones, night vision devices, and EcoFlow energy supplies. So you want to help these guys out? Head over to the link in the description, donorbox.org/CVR-friends, and donate, right? You guys know the rules. As always, basically about $200-ish is about the cost of one FPV drone. So you buy them a drone, the unit sends you a patch. Buy 2 drones, you get more patches. Buy more drones, more patches. It's a great deal. So, you help them out and you get rewarded from the unit. So the link's in the description. And of course, as always, there's also a sale going on Strike Gum for Christmas. I think it's 20% off everything. So again, if you're looking to crush the new year and get back in the gym, I know I am, I've been slacking, you want to check out Strike Gum. And of course, you can always hit that subscribe button. That makes a difference too. Links to all this is in the description. Okay. So what do I think is the actual exchange happening here? Well, there's a couple of reasons. One is that Russia has a hard time buying supplies and things on the open market, right? Because they've been sanctioned, and a lot of international trade is denominated in the US dollar. It prevents complex currency stabilization issues when it comes to signing these agreements, right? It's just easier done in the US dollar, which is seen as kind of the global gold standard for a stable currency. Well, Russia isn't able to do these exchanges, so they need to find all kinds of unique alternatives. And North Korea, also one of the most heavily sanctioned countries on earth, is, able to make these deals happen. Why? Because it's unlikely that North Korea receives $5.5 billion directly. It's possible, but I think less likely. What's much more likely is that North Korea benefits from not just Russian aid in the form of food, fuel, high-tech equipment, technical expertise. And I think that is actually some combination of what's paying for this munitions production. The North Korea isn't getting direct funds, right? Russia's not purchasing these artillery shells. Instead, what Russia, I suspect, is doing is providing things to the North Korean regime that literally that money can't buy. Some of it may be direct exchanges, right? They may be shipping them fuel, for example. But I think what's more valuable is high-tech expertise. So they may, for example, be helping train, one rumor is that they're helping train North Korean fighter pilots in the tactics that Russia has been using. They may even be providing more modern fighter jets to the North Koreans. And part of this is the fact that Russia has been reluctant to, any country really, has been reluctant to engage in this level of partnership with North Korea because they would be sanctioned and turned into an international pariah. Russia already is an international pariah. So it looked outside the sort of international community tent and saw that there was only one other person camping outside the campsite, so to speak, and it was North Korea. So they said, listen, if we want to survive, we got to work together. So Russia's willing to provide a level of technology in fighter aircraft, rocketry, especially rocketry. North Korea's made some real leaps forward. But North Korea, here's the thing, wants to be producing these munitions for Russia. Why? Because if you ever played any strategy game, you know that when you go to war, it's not just about the units. It's about your ability to produce units. And this is true in North Korea as well. So North Korea is looking and saying, listen, we think, we expect, we plan to fight the South Koreans who are trained and equipped by the West. And when we do so, we need to make sure that we have a military in being that is capable of fighting and winning against a Western-backed force. And there's only one military that has shown that capacity, and it is the Russian military. I don't know what you're thinking. You're thinking, but Paul, the Ukrainians, while trained by the West and equipped by the West, are using the West's spare equipment. They're using, and the Ukrainians at the end of the day are vastly smaller in number than the Russians. So it's, whereas the North Korea and South Korea are largely equal. That's all true. But Russia is the closest thing right now to having a military that has tried and true ability to fight a Western military. And so when Russia knocks on North Korea's door and says, listen, we need your help. We want you, and we'll pay you to do it, directly or indirectly. We'll pay you to build the industrial capacity to equip an army that is fighting against a Western military. And they say it's going to be a unique mix that includes a lot of drones. It's going to include 155 shells, RPG shells, right? And the North Koreans say, okay, this is perfect. We are going to get paid to, it's like getting paid to train, to go work out, right? That's how it feels to Kim Jong Un. Someone's like, listen, I'll pay you $200 every time you go to the gym for an hour and work out. They're like, he's like, no brainer, dude. I'm going to train and be more ready for my fight with the South, and you're going to pay me to do it? Like, why would I not do this? And best of all, I know the training I do is going to be absolutely just the right training to take on a Western military. So for North Korea, it's a no-brainer. And for Russia, again, it's also an obvious benefit because they get to sit there, they get the benefit of some of the cheapest workers in the world, right? North Korean factory workers. They're paid literally nothing. They're in a communist state. So they are cheap as cheap can be in terms of their ability to what Russia's going to pay them. So this is dirt cheap artillery manufacturing, and it's going to equip their military. Plus, it's going to help also in terms of the connection, for lack of a better word, that is going to be necessary for these North Korean troops currently fighting in Kursk. But how are those guys going, by the way? The answer is not well. The Ukrainians are arguing that up to 3,000 North Korean troops. Now, this article used the word killed. I don't believe that. The number of killed and injured is 3,000, right? So that seems very realistic. Now, the South Korean intelligence estimated that around 1,000 North Koreans had been injured. But what I want to point out is that the South Korean intelligence, very good at they have probably deep sources in the North Korean government. They have far less depth and penetration of the Russian military in the Ukraine conflict. But you know who does? The Ukrainians. So when the Ukrainians say, hey, we think they've actually had up to 3,000 killed and wounded, I believe them. Why? Because I think 100 is a fairly low number. 1,000 is about right in terms of casualties. And they're not actually incompatible, right? The South Koreans estimate about 1,000 wounded and about 100 dead. And the Ukrainians say it's about 3,000 in total. So, but what I suspect is that probably 1,500 of these are light casualties, guys who are going to go to a Russian medical facility, receive a basic level of treatment, and then get sent back to their units within a few days or a week. I think probably about again, I wouldn't be surprised if around 100 to 200 are KIA and around another 500 to 700 are like permanently wounded. So I think these numbers are actually not too far apart. Now, North Korea, of course, North Korea likely views this as just a price of doing business, right? The North Koreans want to refine their military into one that can fight and win, again, against this Western-backed force with Western tactics. And so they are looking and saying, listen, if we lose 10, 50% of our soldiers, it's fine, because those soldiers that return, right, are going to carry with them real world combat experience, but more importantly, their officers, who are going to have a much lower rate of attrition, are going to be equipped to train and lead a military that can fight on the modern battlefield. But as we've seen on other videos that have leaked from this conflict, the North Koreans are badly ill-prepared. They, in some cases, don't appear to understand that the drones are actual weapons. They don't appear to have a great understanding of how to take down the drones. In one video, in fact, they are so confused by a drone that it actually lowers itself to sit between two North Koreans, like from if I was one and you were the other. The drone sits here, and the North Koreans, in a panic, shoot at the drone, but obviously miss the drone because it's thin, it's like this, and they hit each other. So the drone actually scores the second kill despite being a one and done drone. So, the North Koreans, it's like the old saying, there's no way to prepare fully for combat, but there's definitely ways to be not prepared for combat, right? Nobody's ever 100% prepared for combat, but boy, there's some people are really not prepared. And the North Koreans appear to be really not prepared. Anyway, guys, that's all I had. Thank you to Bill Collier, Robert Colburn, Gars Marnie, Gina Questa, Chris Gorsuch, Vince Karis, El90, Petratoru. Be sure to send a Christmas gift to those Ukrainians. Again, the link's in the description. And by the way, Ukraine Aid Ops, a U.S. 501c3. That means that if you're looking for that tax write-off at the end of the year, that donation is going to help you do it. Link's in the description. Thanks. See you. Cheers.